This is the story of how a 17-year-old Canadian suffering from mental illness was lured by the FBI with the help of the RCMP and convicted of a terrorist act in the United States. Abdulrahman al-Bahnasawy is a Canadian youth who has suffered with mental illness since early childhood.
مش عارف ماني depressed أوي الأيام دي بس يلا بقى نشوف الدكتور النهاردة.
Medical records show that he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, major depression, and psychotic symptoms. He has been in and out of treatment facilities since he was 14 years old. After spending over a year as an inpatient in psychiatric hospitals in 3 countries, he came back home to Canada with his family and resumed his education. But he had to stay on medication due to his severe condition. The medication Abdulrahman was on severely affected his behavior and his performance, both personally and in school. He gained weight. He fell asleep in class, which caused him more stress because of the continuous jokes and laughter of his classmates. That's when he decided to stop taking his medication in the hope that he could return to a normal lifestyle. His parents sought help from the government resources that were available to provide alternate medication. Instead, he was put on a waiting list. He was then put into an inpatient treatment program at the CAMH after multiple suicide attempts. In 2015, while Abdulrahman was in grade 11, already 1 year behind due to having been an inpatient for a year, he received a school assignment about the Islamic Caliphate. That assignment would change Abdulrahman's life forever. During his research, he ended up on an ISIS website and in an online chat room. Abdulrahman's objective was to obtain information to complete his school assignment. Little did he know, the chat room was also filled with FBI informants who managed to manipulate 17-year-old Abdulrahman into discussions about a terrorist plot in New York City. On May 21, 2016, Abdulrahman and his family went on a family vacation to visit New York City. When they arrived at the hotel they were staying at across the river in New Jersey, the al-Bahnasawy family car was surrounded by FBI agents who arrested Abdulrahman for planning a terrorist plot. A plot that was created by the FBI informant manipulating a teenager who was mentally ill.
The FBI is responsible for more terrorism plots in the United States than any other organization. And I've come to the conclusion that the FBI is much better at creating terrorists than it is at catching terrorists.
Because the FBI have accidentally, it seems, developed a system which works rather well. And the system is, they make up a terrorist plot, they find someone to try and carry it out, and they arrest them for doing that.
When Abdulrahman's parents returned home to Oakville, Ontario to gather supporting reports from Abdulrahman's hospitals describing his medical condition, they found that the RCMP was aware of the FBI sting operation, and the RCMP also played a key role in their son's arrest.
We were shocked when we knew that the RCMP, the safety system that should protect our kids, they know about all the operation and they cooperated to manipulate my son.
His parents believe his mental illness made him unstable and vulnerable, and they question why no one intervened to warn them.
Prior to the arrest, and 5 days before Abdulrahman left with his family to New York, the RCMP communicated with his doctor at the CAMH. The RCMP was requesting information about his condition. CAMH confirmed Abdulrahman's bipolar condition to the RCMP. That communication proved that the FBI and the RCMP conspired to frame a Canadian citizen for a plot he himself never planned. He was manipulated without taking into consideration his age or his mental health.
RCMP and FBI, those people, they knew that my son was sick, and they continue to do the same.
But they didn't do their duty to protect the Canadians, and instead they cooperate with the FBI against a Canadian citizen whom they should protect.
In fact, the U.S. Bureau of Prisons doctor determined that Abdulrahman had unspecified schizophrenia and other psychotic disorders. Yet the judge found him competent to stand trial.
The most recent report from an American doctor who met with al-Bahnasawy in jail for 50 hours. Dr. Catherine Porterfield writes, as frightening as his ideas were, they can best be understood as psychological in nature, the terribly misguided thinking of a depressed young person who could not beat addiction.
To call him a calculating terrorist kind of misses the point, I think, because we've seen several other instances of real individuals who over several years have been deeply involved with the movement, and this guy doesn't seem to fit the pattern.
Abdulrahman's Canadian lawyer, Dennis Edney, alleges that the FBI entrapped his client and that the RCMP illegally obtained Abdulrahman's medical records and provided them to the FBI so they could better profile their target. Despite Abdulrahman's health condition, he was pressured into pleading guilty in the absence of his Canadian lawyer, resulting in a sentence of 40 years in a prison system that lacks appropriate treatment for his mental condition. For the past 2 years, the Bahnasawy family have been crossing the border to visit their son twice a month, all year long, regardless of the weather.
We are in our way to visit my son. He is in the United States prison, and as you see, the weather is very bad, and the driving in this condition is very, very risky.
On many of these visits, they found Abdulrahman on a suicide watch because he tried to take his own life.
Driving to see my sick son. Last time he was on the suicide watch. I hope this time I can see him.
In most cases, it's the inmates themselves who say they should be monitored. They're watched by camera, checked on every 15 minutes, and put into a special cell.
Abdulrahman's story could be your story, or your son's. We urge the Canadian government to intervene and bring Abdulrahman back to Canada for better medical treatment and to be near his family. Please help bring him back home for the medical care needed to save his life before it is too late. Please share this video with your Member of Parliament and sign the petition in the description box to bring Abdulrahman back home to Canada.